Hello everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc. And today we got a very interesting one. We got a video from a channel called Cold Case Detective. And it says the death at the Cecil Hotel, the demise of Elisa Lam, true crime documentary. We go get right into this. Ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment, think down below. Let's go.
Lam Yo-hee, better known to her peers at the University of British Columbia and popular culture at large as Elisa Lam, was a bright, thoughtful, and imaginative student. Her interests in fashion and talents for writing were weighed down by the unfortunate demons of bipolar disorder and mental suppression, clouding the circumstances that most assume led to her initial vanishing and tragic death. Amateur sleuths and professional investigators alike have spent the better part of almost 9 years digging theoretical tunnels and holding magnifying glasses up to anything and everything that might shed that one decisive clue in the ultimate reason behind Elisa Lam's demise. These probes and pursuals, combined with assorted observable evidence, have only created headaches more than they've solved questions, leaving the uncracked mystery up for grabs by anyone willing to.
This is one of those cases that has baffled my brain too. This is literally one of those cases. This one and John Benet Ramsey are the two ones that I've just never been able to get out of my brain when it comes to cold cases. Because they should be solved, but they're not. Like, this should be easily able to figure out, but it isn't. And so interested, and I'm so curious about it.
Rise to the challenge, as I hope to provide a more substantial reasoning built upon observable evidence and situational analysis. This is an examination of the bizarre circumstances surrounding Elisa Lam's confusing death. This is Cold Case Detective.
I will also add, I think my friend Christian introduced me and suggested this one. I think my friend Christian just found me another channel to react to. If the person's okay with it, obviously. If they don't have an issue with it.
Elisa Lam was born on April 30th, 1991, in Vancouver, British Columbia, to two immigrants from Hong Kong, David and Yina Lam. Her parents opened up a restaurant in Burnaby.
I could be honest, I didn't know she was Canadian. I must have missed that almost every time I've done research on this case. I don't think I've ever met it. That just went right over my head. That's actually amazing. It didn't change anything. I just heard that just mentioned. I didn't know she was Canadian. That's something that slipped through my brain completely.
Canada, and the family helped operate the popular dining spot called Paul's Restaurant for years. In 2010, Elisa started her first blog on the internet, titled Ether Fields. Throughout the next couple of years, she used the platform to showcase her love of fashion and clothing, often posting magazine articles and fashion-related photography. She would also openly speak about her struggles with mental illness, constantly fearing her transcript would show her frequently dropped classes and sporadic college attendance. However, she also wrote honestly about her thoughts and ideas on psychology, emotion, and the human spirit. Throughout these blogs, she kept records of her own musings while sharing stories that reflected a bright mind and intelligent thinker. Written in her final blog on Ether Fields, Elisa announced she would be transferring her energy and social media presence to Tumblr, starting a page called Nouvelle Nouveau, translated as News New. On her page, Elisa shared thousands of images and pieces of writing, both her own and of various authors. It was apparent on Tumblr that she held deep-rooted interests in classical books and films, experimental art and design, and fashion and culture. Sprinkled amongst these fascinations were bits of dark and brooding images, hinting at a more personal sadness and perhaps conflicted mind, full of monsters, melancholy, and misery. In fact, Elisa did.
This is the best description I have ever heard of someone going through a Tumblr account. Clearly there is a dark side to every post, I'd say. But Elisa Lam clearly had problems that even had medication for, but it just might not have helped in the end. Our mind can do bad things and play tricks we don't want playing.
Did have a history with a couple of psychological disorders. This narrative kept under wraps by her family for months after her disappearance and death. Specifically, she was diagnosed for bipolar disorder and depression. Bipolar disorder is a mental illness that causes depression itself, in addition to instances of abnormal and elevated mood called mania or hypermania. To treat these disorders, Elisa took multiple medications, such as Dexedrine, Wellbutrin, and mood stabilizers. For most of her life, Elisa functioned without major ramifications as a result of these struggles, and until the fateful trip to Los Angeles in 2013, she had shown zero signs of breakdown or danger to either herself or to others. With these characteristics in mind, it's important to remember Elisa Lam as a human being, not a diagnosis. She was a promising student at the University of British Columbia, and obviously had a plethora of ideas about the world. She had a family, hobbies, and most importantly, a future. Unfortunately, it was cut short of its potential, as the mystery of her fate began to unravel in December of 2012.
That's actually cool looking. I didn't know that was a thing. That actually looks really... Actually, my friend has probably showed me that. But that actually looks kind of cool. Weird and cool at the same time.
Now let's explore the timeline of events leading to Elisa's death. On December 21st, 2012, Elisa gives the first recorded mention of her desire to travel to the West Coast and visit a school in Santa Clara for potential transfer. A week later, on December 28th, Elisa mentions on Tumblr that her cell phone has been misplaced. After the new year, on January 5th, 2013, Elisa mentions planning for her West Coast tour, and for the first time, suggests meeting up with people via the internet. A couple of days later, on January 7th, Elisa books her flight for the West Coast tour and tacks on a very eerie message regarding the future on Tumblr. Then on January 9th,
My brain just went blank. I completely forgot what I was going to say. Never mind. Ignore me. I completely forgot what I was going to say.
Elisa posts on Tumblr that due to paranoia, she has made a new Facebook account for the 5th time, and reposts a blurb.
I'm proud to have the living crap out of Facebook because I'm paranoid like that, and I come across my 4th Facebook note out of 5 I have. Verbalism posted here from my Facebook, so respect. She didn't spell respect right, so respect and kindly do not repost this. This is the very start of my depression today. I'm feeling very low. Written the day after my Jexplorer stint in Trolls Pistols, and it's a type up of what I scribbled in my notebook. In all honesty, I'm really happy to be here in Montreal. Somehow I was trying to write down my last 24 hours in Troy's Pistols, and instead this spews out. Not my fault. I think it's trying to tell me something. Anyways, It's now my 4th note, greatest accomplishment in my life, a 4th Facebook note. I only edited the spelling mistake, Facebook book, red dot line, but apparently you want a word. Otherwise, it's exactly what I wrote down. I.e. 10 out versus 1735, that's 535 to the normal people.
She had written earlier that day. Before the blurb is an introduction in which she claims, "This is the very start of my depression, and today I am feeling very low." Fast forward to January 18th, when Elisa supposedly arrives in Vancouver on her tour. 4 days later, on January 22nd, she supposedly travels to San Diego for the next leg in her journey after missing her initial flight while getting lost in the airport. On January 24th, Elisa posts on Tumblr that her trip so far has consisted mostly of activities and actions that she participates in back at home on a normal schedule. With this post, she hints at her later actions in Los Angeles when she says, "Every now and then I do something entirely impulsive and reckless." A few days later, on January 27th, she posts again on Tumblr that she was out with friends at a speakeasy and had in fact lost another phone. Although this time it did not belong to her, instead she had borrowed her friend's old BlackBerry for her trip. The next day, January 28th, Elisa arrives in LA and checks into the Cecil Hotel near Skid Row, a budget motel for tourists in the city. On January 30th,
It's not called that now, I changed the name of that hotel, rightfully so. It's in the same location, so people could find it easily still, but I believe it's still a hotel. It's just now not that hotel. And not called the Cecil Hotel. But I feel like people are gonna, like, I think the plan there was, let's change the name. People might not know it's the same place. That's not how that works. They can just look up the address. It's the hotel there in that address.
Elisa's anonymous roommates complain of her odd behavior, and she is moved to a private room on the 5th floor so that she isn't a disturbance to other guests. On January 31st, the last day of her planned visit in LA, Elisa is seen for the last time by a couple of anonymous hotel workers, and then finally by a clerk, Katie Orphan, at the local bookstore, who mentioned Elisa was by herself, but also outgoing, very lively, and very friendly. Orphan also said she was talking about what book she was getting, and whether or not what she was getting would be too heavy for her to carry around as she traveled. Because Elisa was supposed to check out of the Cecil Hotel that day and travel to Santa Cruz for the last leg on her tour, both her parents were waiting for a phone call. In fact, Elisa had called her parents almost every night during her trip, despite losing her temporary cell phone. After they heard nothing from their daughter, Mr. and Mrs. Lam flew to Los Angeles to file a missing persons report, and
Interesting. So, like, they didn't even hear her at all. They didn't hear her the day she was supposed to get on the flight and go to Santa Cruz, I think. And they immediately were just like, we're getting on a flight, we're going to LA, something's up right here. Immediately. God damn.
and assist the Los Angeles Police Department in their search. Throughout the first week of February, both the Lam couple and the LAPD scoured the Cecil and the surrounding areas for any trace of Elisa. Police dogs were unable to pick up on her scent, and for the first few days, no clues were uncovered. Elisa's room that she stayed in prior to her disappearance was void of any suspicious items or signs of disturbance, an unsettling occurrence for such a strange vanishing. On February 6th, the LAPD released an official statement online regarding Elisa Lam's disappearance and details surrounding the case, urging citizens to keep an eye out for her profile. A day later, they hold a press conference on February 7th, but again, receive no leads or calls from the general public. Then on February 14th, LAPD releases the biggest bombshell in the entire case, an elevator surveillance clip from February 1st, showing Elisa Lam walk in the elevator, press a series of buttons, and proceed to act in a
The most bizarrest elevator footage I have ever seen. It's so weird. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. It's so bizarre.
Bizarre manner. The clip was unsettling to say the least, but gave investigators one more glimpse into Lam's final sighting and brought the case to worldwide attention. The missing persons search would soon come to an end, however, when on February 19th, a Cecil hotel worker responded to multiple guest complaints about funny-smelling water and low faucet pressure. The employee went up to the rooftop water system, peered into the open tank, and discovered Elisa Lam's naked body floating face up. LAPD was immediately notified, and the water tanks soon became a crime scene. A couple of days thereafter, on February 21st, the Los Angeles Coroner's Office issued a label of Elisa Lam's death as accidental, due to the consequence of drowning, with bipolar disorder as a finding of other conditions contributing but not related to the immediate cause of death. On June of 2013, the full coroner's reports, along with the toxicology results, were released to the public as well. While not revealing any massive twists to the mystery, it did note that Elisa Lam's body was indeed found naked, with her clothes also found in the water tank, covered in a sandy particulate, along with her keys and watch. From here on out, thousands of theories, hypotheticals, conspiracies, and simple...
This is one of those cases where the thought of it just being a normal situation, a normal death, just doesn't add up. Like, to people, it doesn't add up. They might have a fig, someone comments on this saying this is the most honest, way to do Elisa Lam's case they've ever heard. So maybe there's something here that kind of just puts it to end in theory. But this is one of those cases where the thought of it just being a normal suicide attempt is very hard to say.
Casual conversations have been discussed through the following months and years. Nobody seemed to want to stick by the LA Coroner's Office and their findings. Many questioned the police investigation, and even more saw possible holes in the final report. Regardless, the timeline of Elisa Lam's death and its direct series of events blossomed into the most talked about case of the 21st century. Without a doubt, the most controversial and scrutinized piece of the Elisa Lam case is the 4-minute CCTV footage that the LAPD pulled from one of the Cecil Hotel surveillance tapes, situated in the upper corner of a main elevator carriage in the...
I don't know how it's controversial or fucking scrutinized. It's not fake. It's not fake footage. It's legit footage. It's a legit person. I don't know why she's doing it. That's the only thing I think. There's no scrutinizing like how if it's real authenticity or whatever. It's just there's no controversy with it. It's just bizarre.
In the northern corridor. Before we dive,
I would have uploaded the footage too if I was police officers. This is fucking weird. Maybe the public knows what this woman's doing and we can't figure out.
Deep into its contents, let's watch the main portion of the video. Viewer discretion is advised. The following images are unsettling and could be viewed as sensitive material.
The most bizarre thing like footage I've ever seen.
The video is a bit grainy, and segments of it are hard to clearly make out. But one thing is for certain. Elisa Lam is the subject of the footage, and is clearly reacting to something. Now what that something is...
Now that I look at it, like, the beginning of it's what happens after she leaves the elevator, like, it goes out and she comes back weirder. That confuses me, makes me wonder. But, like, the beginning of it could just be she's completely freaked out by the fact that just elevator door isn't closing. Like, at all.
will likely never be accounted for with 100% certainty, but it does make the clip that much stranger. It makes one wonder if Elisa is peering out of the elevator with the sense that she's being followed. One could argue she's talking out loud at certain points, possibly just to herself. Between the random buttons pressed on her entrance, to the emptiness of the hallways, to the undistinguished hand gestures and body positions she makes, the rhyme and reason of the video is impossible to explain on a first watch. There have also been some controversy surrounding the tape's origins. Some people across the internet claim the footage skips 1 minute of the timecode, but because of its low quality, it's not easy to point out. Others say the footage itself has been tampered with, purposefully pixelating Elisa's mouth at various points, but these reports have either been denied or flat out ignored by professionals.
That sounds a little BS, because even if she was, like, it's not like she would have been like, this is what's happened to me, like, it's not... I don't think so. I think it's just bizarre. I don't think that's the case. The elevator thing is clearly not the greatest quality.
Thing is for sure. The elevator footage from February 1st, 2013, depicting the last known images of Elisa Lam, have conjured both worthy concern and far-fetched conspiracies, and remains the single most intriguing piece of evidence linked to the case.
100%.
And now let's examine the theories surrounding the mystery of Elisa Lam's death. Since the day Elisa Lam went missing, the CCTV tapes were released and her body was discovered on the rooftop of the Cecil Hotel. Countless theories have been proposed across the internet and publications all over the world, trying to unlock the secrets of the unexplainable mystery. Many of these assumptions are based purely in conspiracy theory. Some circles have drawn up wild fantasies that explain Elisa was playing an elevator game, attempting to cross over into alternative universes. Others believe Elisa was possessed by spiritual forces, encountered paranormal subjects, or was contacted by otherworldly beings. These are farcical attempts to glamorize Elisa's death as science fiction or occultist, and are based upon zero observation.
Well, the elevator game, I don't believe either of those are true. But the elevator game is a thing that people actually do. Don't think it's real. But the elevator game is a thing people actually do. I don't know why, because it's really stupid. But people actually do it.
Observable evidence connected by complex coincidental claims and hyperbole. For example, the location of the Cecil Hotel is in Skid Row of downtown Los Angeles. The area is infamous for its high crime rates and suspicious activity. Drug peddling and violent crime are common both outside and inside of the hotel, which has its own history of murder and suicide. In 1985, serial killer Richard Ramirez, dubbed as the Night Stalker, stayed in one of the 600 rooms of the Cecil in the midst of a killing spree that ended in the deaths of 13 women. Another homicide suspect, Jack Unterberger, stayed in the hotel in 1991. It was a frequent spot for those with suicidal tendencies, seeing a few people jump from the rooftop in the 1950s and 60s. It even housed another cold case, that of Pigeon Goldie Osgood, a former telephone operator whose mutilated body was discovered in her room in 1964. However, despite the criminology of the Cecil, none of it can be directly attributed to the death of Elisa. A much more plausible explanation is that Elisa Lam was followed during her time in LA, chased in the hallways of the Cecil Hotel, and subsequently murdered and placed in the water tank by a second party. Initially, this theory made sense. If you go back to multiple Tumblr posts that Elisa made throughout the end of 2012 and beginning of 2013, she was conscious about her outspoken nature and feared that one day her mouth would get her into trouble. At various points, she wrote about unsettling anxieties. One post read, "I'm going out tonight. I really hope no creeper comes near me." At least twice, Elisa was convinced trouble was lurking around the corner at the fault of her tongue, saying, quote, "I really need to be removed from society before my big mouth gets me in trouble and I get beaten up," as well as, "My mouth is my downfall and it will get me in trouble. I already do so many stupid things. I have troubles knowing where boundaries are, and it seems I always make the biggest mistakes at the worst possible moments and get caught and face consequences for me getting caught the one time I wasn't thinking and did something stupid to cut corners." Taking this into consideration, her own admission that she frequently sparked arguments with strangers around her, it is plausible she came into a confrontation at the wrong place and at the wrong time that winter. In addition to Elisa's worries is the manner in how she acts during the elevator footage. After she enters for the first time and presses the floor buttons, she waits a few moments before slowly approaching the elevator's door frame. She then quickly sticks her head out in the hallway and glances from side to side in a hurried manner, then pulling back into the elevator. She pins herself against the wall and then into the corner, acting as if she was avoiding the vision of someone from outside. She goes back to the doorframe once more, and again, cautiously sticks her head into the open. From here, she makes a series of random movements before pressing more buttons. When she returns outside for the final time, it appears as if she's communicating either orally or with her hands. Regardless, no one is seen, and Elisa disappears from view. The first part of her movements could indicate she was hiding from another person, but her random footwork and dazed demeanor in the second part of the footage don't seem to make sense if she was truly on the run. The Tumblr post concerns combined.
True. Good point. That's a good point. Yeah, if you were being followed, you wouldn't go. You would do the first half, the second half of the elevator footage. You wouldn't do if you were. You wouldn't do if you were hiding from someone.
With the suspicious video, truly makes one wonder if there was someone involved with Elisa's death. But there are too many rebuttals to the argument that her cause of death was homicide. For instance, there were 0 bruises or signs of bodily harm on Elisa's figure, ruling out an assault. All of her belongings were accounted for besides the long-lost cell phone, ruling out robbery or attempted robbery. The eyewitness testimonies by hotel employees and the bookstore clerk claim she was completely alone and showed no signs of struggle or distress regarding another person. Cameras captured no other suspects around the time of Elisa's recording, and her lack of relationships in a new territory helped rule out a planned or gestated murder, as she had very little friends back at home, let alone Los Angeles. In the end, there was 0 evidence confirming the.
Well, first of all, just because she doesn't have no friends doesn't mean she couldn't be murdered, alright? Everything else adds up, but just don't do that. Well, she didn't have friends, she couldn't have been murdered. That don't mean shit. She easily can be murdered still. All it takes is a stranger to see it. We've seen many cases here. Or just a random person just chooses random people and kills them. We've seen it. It's a thing that happens.
These theories about murder or foul play, leading us, just as the LAPD did, to rule murder out. All that being said, the official opinion of the LA Chief Coroner and assigned medical examiners presents a catch-22. They preface their final hypothesis with a warning that the interpretation of the evidence is limited because the sample size is small, particularly the lack of blood samples tested due to low levels. However, they then contradict themselves when they say that the police investigation ruled out foul play, but also stated, quote, "A full review of the circumstances of the case and appropriate consultation do not support intent to harm oneself. The manner of death is classified as accident." So if there was no harmful intention, either by Lam herself or a second suspect, then how exactly did Elisa accidentally climb up a massive cylinder, discover it was a water tank, lift up an incredibly heavy lid, and jump into the dark water. And if the lid was already opened, why did she choose to climb in as a response? Murder and suicide are polar opposite explanations that have both been deemed inapplicable. Believers that Elisa was killed by somebody else linger over the fact that the rooftop access was protected by alarms on the doors, and the fact that her accessing the water tanks required agility and strength. However, it has been repeatedly explained that the hotel has 4 different access points to the roof, 3 by fire escape that have no alarms, and that the water tank lids were either opened or lighter than originally assumed, easily operated by a woman of Elisa's size. So now we must find the middle ground between the 2 explanations, and justifiably theorize how such a specific, unarguable set of circumstances could be regarded as an accident. The most plausible and evidential theory is that Elisa Lam suffered a manic episode due to her struggles with bipolar disorder, both leading up to and on the day of February 1st. To start, we must consider the toxicology reports. 2 different antidepressant medicines prescribed to Elisa were either traced directly or metabolites were traced to her heart, blood, and liver enzymes. One of these drugs was bupropion, known to sometimes cause mania in bipolar disorder. Another mood-stabilizing medicine had metabolites traced to her enzymes, but Elisa's antipsychotic medicine was not found in her system. So in review, Elisa had only taken one of her prescribed drugs the day she passed, and had only taken the others recently, if not at all, in the days leading up to her death. The toxicology report also confirms that Elisa had no alcohol in her system or other recreational drugs. This rules out the possibility that she had been under the influence of substances while on camera in the elevator, or that something such as marijuana, pills, or drunkenness inspired her to climb into the tank. Her liver was not tested for rohypnol, better known as roofies. There was no urine in the system, meaning that she excreted any and all liquid waste urine that would contain traces of roofies, ketamine, or other date rape paraphernalia before entering the tank. So reflecting on the information regarding her history with mental disorders and the calculated prescription use and lack thereof, we must next understand what exactly an episode of mania is. Several mania can include psychotic features, such as hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, catatonia, and lack of insight. One mental health professional uses the phrase disorganization, yet appearing singularly focused, highlighting its occurrence when Elisa presses the buttons in the elevator at random, appearing intent on some kind of agenda or direction. Symptoms of mania also include psychomotor agitation, which involves repetitive, purposeless, or unintentional movements and behaviors. Dr. Daniel Morrill reviews in a medical journal that these actions can result in the wringing of the hands, pacing, and taking off clothes repeatedly. All 3 behaviors were exhibited by Elisa, both in the elevator footage and in or around the water tanks. The fact that Elisa Lam attempted to go to the roof at all could be a response to hallucinations or delusions. What these might have been are unknown, and it would be unfair to Elisa's memory to assume and fictionalize her mental illness. It is important to note that manic hallucinations are not just visual, but can be manifestations of sound, smell, taste, and touch, another possible explanation to her removing of clothing. In combination with the inconsistent prescription upkeep, the pure fact that Elisa was in a foreign location with a lack of communication back home could have set off a manic episode. The people Elisa had been staying with since she booked a shared room with fellow guests stated that Elisa was acting strangely, to the point where she was bothering the others, and had to be moved to another room by herself. The last piece of promising evidence supporting this theory came to us in a testimony from a confidential resident, to be referenced as Resident A, from Los Angeles, California, who wishes for both them and their family to be kept anonymous. After hearing about our investigation into the case of Elisa Lam, and having little to no prior knowledge of this scenario, Resident A told us that a few years ago, they had a family member in Mexico commit suicide as a result of manic depression or bipolar disorder. Resident A stated that this family member died from drowning after plunging into the depths of a similar industrial water tank. Resident A also stated that this was a common occurrence for the family member, who, as a result of their bipolar disorder, seeked out bodies of water whenever suffering from a bout of mania. Resident A confirmed that this family member was about 35 years old when they passed away, but had been suffering from mental illness for over a decade, and had an inclination to run away and find attraction to water throughout the years. While this case has no direct relation to Elisa Lam, it's peculiar that both instances involve a confirmed bipolar subject who, as a result of their condition, drowned because of an unconscious gravitation to water. There is hardly any research done in the medical or psychological field regarding this phenomena, but we are incredibly interested if there are other situations like this one. If anything, it further suggests that Elisa's reason for selecting the Cecil Hotel's water tank may not be a mystery, but a tragic symptom of her psychological illness.
That was a great way to break it down. Like, he broke that down to such a degree that, yeah, at this moment, it seems like he made it be convinced. Mental health and unfortunately a bad thing of bipolar disorder could have caused this.
In the end, taking all evidence, scientific research, and social patterns into account, we've determined that the initial report from the chief coroner is accurate in that Elisa Lam died accidentally due to drowning as an indirect result of bipolar disorder. While other theories were briefly discussed, their complete lack in observable evidence and origins from make-believe prevented them from serious consideration. The reason this case fascinated followers all over the world and produced incessant gossip and conspiracies is the fact that it's hard for people to accept simple, innocent explanations for complex and unsettling situations. Psychological disorders are heavily stigmatized, even today, but also very misunderstood. People don't want to accept that Elisa Lam was suffering from hallucinations due to bipolar disorder, because that's only in her mind, and they struggle accepting such indistinction. Instead, it's far easier to tell our own versions of what we want to have happened, something more fantastical or intriguing than mental illness. For example, some people believe another party was involved because Lam's cell phone was missing, and her Tumblr remained active for months following her death. Yet the simple answer is her original phone was lost weeks before her trip, and Tumblr will populate active accounts with posts in the likeness of their previous content for a brief time after they go dark. People also couldn't...
Why? Why is that a thing Tumblr does? That is weird. That is very weird. Why do they do that? That doesn't make no sense. That's weird.
Wrap their brains around the fact that Elisa made it to the rooftop and into the water tanks undetected. However, it is quite simply laid out in the undisputed material facts and supporting evidence section of the motion for summary judgment document after the Cecil Hotel was sued for its role in Elisa's death. In box 10, it states that, quote, "The rooftop access door is equipped with an electronic alarm system which alerts hotel employees when the rooftop access door has been opened," followed by box 14 that states, quote, "The alarm for the rooftop access door was not activated at any point in January or February 2013. This means that Elisa used one of the 3 fire escapes to reach the rooftop, which was proven possible by an international guest at the Cecil Hotel via a YouTube demonstration. In addition,
Wouldn't you have to know if that's there, though? Like, maybe that's where I'm stupid? Like, wouldn't you have to know where the access point to the get to it is? I guess you could just kind of just happen to find it, I guess?
Motion for summary judgment reports in box 20 that, quote, "Someone could theoretically access the water tank by climbing to the top of an elevator utility room and jumping down on the water tank from above." This photo depicts the elevator utility room in question, which allows easy access from a red set of stairs and a joined ladder. The leap from that structure to the water tanks is also quite negligible, as seen put to scale with the size of a human portrayed here. In terms of the elevator video, our story-centric minds want to fill in the hallways on either side of the elevator with monsters and perpetrators and supernatural phenomena. But in reality, there was nothing out of sort on the night of February 1st, 2013. Only Elisa Lam truly knew what she saw and what she felt the day she disappeared. And it's up to us to trust that it was the unfortunate unpredictability of mental illness that caused these emotions, and the actions that resulted as such. After all, Elisa was a young woman who had recently gone through intense emotional roller coasters with an identity crisis and building anxieties revolving around her purpose in life. She was somewhat aware of impending depression and admitted online that she could tell she was leaning towards more impulsive and reckless tendencies after the fact, a glaring sign of potential mania. She was about the age that many young people start to experience what are called breakthrough symptoms of both bipolar spectrum and schizophrenia spectrum tendencies. The unfamiliar surroundings of Skid Row, LA, potential insomnia, mixed with an absence of proper medicine, compounded her confusion and eventual mania. There is no one ruling factor that led to Elisa Lam's harrowing death. Instead, it was a combination of nature and circumstance, heightened by coincidental video recordings that cultivated a gross amount of inconsiderate internet conspiracy. Let this examination of the bizarre circumstances surrounding Elisa Lam's death be a step in the process of ending the stigmatization around her struggles with disorder and mental illness in general. Elisa was a wonderful human being with infinite potential. She had interests and hobbies and dislikes, as all of us do. She has a family who still honor her memory. It is time for us to do the same and take lessons where we can. Look after those with mental health issues and speak up about it before we create another tragic saga like that of Elisa Lam. This is Cold Case Detective.
Well done. Well done, Cold Case Detective. Well freaking done. Unbelievable job you did at doing and breaking down this case. Well done. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all for the next one.